After Star Wars was released, it became apparent that my story, however many films it took to tell, was only one of thousands that could be told about the characters who inhabited its galaxy. But these were not the stories that I was destined to tell. Instead, they would spring from the imagination of other writers, inspired by the glimpse of a galaxy that Star Wars provided. Today, it is an amazing, if unexpected, legacy of Star Wars that so many gifted writers are contributing new stories to that saga. George Lucas, from the introduction of A Splinters of the Mind's Eye, 1996. Hello there, and welcome back to the Skywalker Files from a certain point of view, the podcast where we bravely sift through the expanded universe in search of order, only to discover, rather predictably, that chaos has beaten us there by several chapters. Today, we enter a tale that asks one of the most terrifying questions in the entire galaxy. What if you had to go back to school? Yes, even Jedi aren't spared that particular horror. In the School of Fear, Anakin Skywalker and his ever-grinning academic rival, Ferus Olin, are sent undercover in an elite leadership academy after a senator's son mysteriously vanishes. Because when you need a delicate investigation operation involving diplomacy, subtlety, and restraint, naturally, you send to Anakin. What follows is a mixture of teenage conspiracies, political tensions, and the kind of schoolyard power dynamics that can bring even the strongest Jedi to their knees. Somewhere in the shadows lurks a secret group of students. The planet itself inches towards war, and our two young apprentices must navigate it all while pretending that homework is the greatest threat they face. As always, we'll break down the publication details, main characters, plot, tone, and the connections to the wider galaxy. But for now, sharpen your pencils, straighten your tunics, and brace yourself, because in this episode, the Force is with us, but so is the administration. School of Fear was published in 2003 as part of Jude Watson's long-running Jedi Quest series. Her chronicle of that fraught, endlessly instructive period when Obi-Wan Kenobi attempted to raise Anakin Skywalker into something resembling a responsible Jedi, but instead received a daily masterclass in patience, improvisation, and emotional damage. Jude Watson, of course, is the reigning champion of the Jedi angst, political intrigue, and children in peril, but in a character-building way. By this point in her tenure, she had perfected the art of constructing pre-Clone War drama. Those formative Padawan days when Anakin and Ferus were vying for top marks, top missions, and top levels of frustration delivered directly to Obi-Wan's bloodstream. Time-wise, School of Fear takes place roughly about halfway through the Jedi Quest series. After Anakin has already established himself as both gifted and alarming, and while Ferus remains the Temple's resident overachiever. This is pre-Attack of the Clones, pre-Jedi student breakdowns about sand, and very much in the Anakin still technically has a chance to turn out fine phase of his life. A charming illusion for all involved. So let's jump into the characters at this point. So right off the bat, we have Anakin, our first Jedi apprentice in this field trip of academic doom. Anakin brings his usual assortment of talents, brilliance, impulsiveness, compassion, and enough repressed frustration to power a small starship. While undercover at the elite leadership school, he must pretend to be a normal student, an assignment arguably more challenging than fighting a legion of battle droids. He's here to find a missing senator's son, But the mission quickly becomes a test of patience, trust, and how many times a Padawan can mutter, "I've got a bad feeling about this," before someone notices. Then we have Ferus, the temple's shining academic star and Anakin's favorite rival. If by favorite, we mean the one Anakin would least like to be trapped with in a study hall. Ferus is disciplined, principled, and almost aggressively competent. Naturally, this makes Anakin and him perfect partners for an undercover operation where subtlety is required. Which is, of course, why they spend most of their time irritating each other. Ferus brings method to Anakin's madness, which is useful provided they don't throttle each other first. The Jedi along for the ride on this mission is Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's technically not undercover, but his presence hovers over the mission like a wary parental force ghost. Obi-Wan provides guidance, analyzes political tensions, and tries very hard not to think about the fact he's just sent his apprentice into an environment renowned for peer pressure, secrecy, and adolescent dramatics. One might say he's supervising from a distance for his own mental health. The catalyst of the story, of course, though, is the senator's son, vanished without warning. His disappearance destabilizes not only his family, but the fragile political balance on the planet. Was he kidnapped? Was he lured away? Has he joined some kind of rebellion? The answer drives Anakin and Ferus deep into the school's hidden social structure. And lurking in the shadows of the institution is a clandestine group of students who operate somewhere between an underground fight club and a junior revolutionary movement. They may or may not be involved in the disappearance, and they definitely contribute to an atmosphere that makes the Jedi wish they simply assigned detention instead. So let's jump into the plot, tone, and theme section. We enter with the two Masters and Padawan teams, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Siri, and Ferus. Their mission is straightforward in theory. Discover what happened to Gilliam, the senator's son. In practice, however, everything becomes complicated by the rumors surrounding an adolescent mercenary group operating out of the very school Gilliam attended. Whether these young operatives are rebels, idealists, or simply overachievers in poor judgment is unclear. But their existence turns a missing persons case into a possible political manipulation. So to uncover the truth, Anakin and Ferus go undercover as transfer students. Anakin arrives under the guise of a scholarship recipient, an arrangement he greets with enthusiasm roughly equivalent to having sand poured into his boots. While Ferus breezes in as the impeccably polished son of a mid-rim official, a role he was arguably born ready to play. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan pursues the political angle, interviewing officials, analyzing factional tensions, and trying to prevent Anakin from sliding into full-blown crisis while they're attempting to survive high school. As the investigation unfolds, the apprentices discover that Gilliam was not kidnapped at all. He engineered his own disappearance, designed not as a cry for help, but as a calculated attempt to punish his father. His alliance with the mercenary youths, far from a coerced partnership, is a personal statement of rebellion wrapped in melodrama. Anakin, naturally sympathetic to paternal frustrations, becomes entangled in the group's narrative of righteous resistance. Ferus predictably does not. When the Jedi finally intervene and dismantle Gilliam's scheme, the political disaster is narrowly averted. Gilliam is returned, the mercenaries are disarmed, and the senator is left to reflect on the danger of raising a son who weaponizes theatrics. But the mission leaves its own trail of fallout. Obi-Wan notes but unmistakably that Anakin's troublesome sympathy for renegade students, His blurred sense of loyalty and his increasingly loose relationship with the Jedi Code is starting to cause problems. It's a moment of disappointment tinged with foreboding and the kind of subtle fracture that Jude Watson always plants with surgical precision. Tone-wise, the story oscillates between undercover suspense and adolescent rebellion wrapped in a thin layer of political intrigue. It balances the tension of planetary crisis with the more intimate drama of students testing boundaries, identities, and ideologies. The undercover school setting brings a brisk pace and a sharper, almost sardonic edge, echoing Obi-Wan's wry observation and Ferus's overachiever energy. Thematically, the book explores the consequences of privilege, the allure of rebellion to those who never experience powerlessness, and the moral murk that young Jedi face when navigating conflict without clear villains. It asks uncomfortable questions about loyalty, about the temptation of shortcuts, about the razor-thin line between righteous resistance and reckless ego. Most of all, it quietly examines Anakin's vulnerability to causes that validate his anger, foreshadowing future choices that will make Obi-Wan's disappointment far more dramatic. School of Fear may center on missing students, teenage mercenaries, and the unique horrors of undercover coursework, but its threads stretch well beyond the Andranian halls. The story fits neatly into Jude Watson's broader tapestry of pre-Attack of the Clones Jedi politics, offering subtle ripples that echo through the rest of the Jedi Quest era and beyond. First, the dynamic between Anakin and Ferus continues its slow, inevitable descent into competitive tension. Every mission they undertake together seems specifically engineered to highlight their opposite strengths and their opposite instincts. Ferus is meticulous, diplomatic, and relentlessly by the book. Anakin is, well, not. Their interactions here further demonstrate why their rivalry becomes a defining part of Anakin's adolescence and why it finds its tragic resonance later, particularly when Ferus departs the Order. You can almost feel Obi-Wan sensing the drift, even if he can't yet name it. Second, this mission reinforces the recurring themes of political instability spreading throughout the Republic, one system at a time. Andara is not a separatist world yet, but its inner turmoil fits the pattern. Local conflicts, neglected grievances, the opportunistic factions are becoming increasingly common, as if the entire galaxy is quietly rearranging itself for the storm to come. The Jedi find themselves playing mediators in situations that once would have remained strictly political. It's another hint that the Order is being drawn into roles it was never meant to fill. Lastly, the plot surrounding Gilliam Tarturi reflects a recurring motif in the expanded universe: privileged youths radicalizing not from oppression, but from disillusionment. These themes recur elsewhere, whether in young political idealists, disaffected aristocrats, or ambitious future leaders who believe the galaxy's systems are flawed and must be reshaped. In hindsight, it mirrors the early rumblings of a very ideology that will fuel the Separatist and, much later, the Empire. Taken together, School of Fear acts as another subtle tremor in the prequel timeline, one more sign that beneath the polished floors of the Republic, cracks are quietly spreading, and the Jedi busy corralling mercenary students and rescuing gifted but misguided teenagers, can sense the imbalance but not shape of what's coming. School of Fear may present itself as a simple undercover rescue mission, but as with so many Jedi Quest stories, it's really a character study dressed up in a school uniform and political tension. The missing student, the mercenary youths, the looming specter of civil unrest, all form the scaffolding for something more intimate, another chisel mark in the slow shaping of Anakin Skywalker. This book is especially notable for the way it highlights the widening gap between Anakin and the code he's meant to uphold. His sympathy for Gilliam's rebellion isn't inherently wrong. After all, Anakin has never been shy about challenging authority. But it's the why that matters. Gilliam's rebellion is fueled by resentment, entitlement, and a desire to inflict pain on those who wronged him. And Anakin, who harbors his own vault of unspoken grievances, recognizes a piece of himself in that spark. Jude Watson lets that recognition sit quietly on the page, which makes it all the more unsettling. Ferus, meanwhile, continues to serve as the narrative counterweight. Disciplined, principled, frustratingly consistent, it's easy to see why Anakin bristles at him. But it's equally clear why Obi-Wan considers Ferus the model Padawan. Their dynamic is stiff, uneasy, and occasionally charged, and it remains one of the emotional anchors of the series. The mission's political dimensions reinforce the era's overarching instability. Andara's crisis feels like another tile on the mosaic leading to the Clone Wars. Local unrest, weak diplomacy, and people in power who underestimate the consequences of their children's choices. Even the mercenary students, in their juvenile way, are rehearsing the conflict that will soon engulf the galaxy. Above all, School of Fear succeeds because it uses a seemingly small crisis, a teenager's staged disappearance, to illuminate a slowly forming fault lines in the Jedi Order, in galactic politics, and in Anakin himself. It's a quieter story, yes, but that quiet has a sharp edge. An edge Obi-Wan notices and fears. Next time on the Skywalker Files, from a certain point of view, we leave the hallowed halls of academia behind and step directly into a far more dangerous kind of trap. In the Shadow Trap, our Jedi heroes find themselves ensnared in a mission where every clue is a misdirection, every ally may be compromised, and the threat lurking beneath the surface is far more personal than anyone expects. It's a story of shifting loyalties, escalating tensions, and the uncomfortable realization that not all shadows come from the dark side. Some are cast by the Jedi themselves. So join us as we unpack conspiracies, decode hidden motives, and of course, watch Anakin and Obi-Wan navigate yet another crisis with that familiar blend of hope, dread, and thinly disguised exasperation. Until then, may the Force be with you, because something tells me we're gonna need it.